Welcome, welcome, welcome. Sorry for being a few minutes late. I appreciate everyone who's in here right now. Hopefully, we are having a little better night than last night, although it's just 24 hours after the New York Mets seem to have been completely dismantled, at least temporarily. We'll go with that. And, I was thinking about this all night, literally all night, and all day, and trying to think, what is the next move? What is the next step? And at the very least, I'm like, okay, David Stearns, all right, we didn't sign Edwin Diaz. We didn't try to re-sign Pete Alonso. At least it seems as if most Mets fans have taken the biggest gut punches. Okay, all right. But then we try to figure out what exactly is the plan. I mean, literally, we had what, 5, 6 all-star level players last year. Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, Edwin Diaz, and Brandon Nimmo. So those are 5 of our better players or most talented players. So now you got 3 of those players. That leaves us with a roster of 2 all-star players, very good players, Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor. Usually, if you're all in, right, the Mets are all in, $300 million payroll, you would essentially build around your core, meaning you would build around Pete Alonso. You would build around Edwin Diaz, one of the most dynamic elite closers in baseball. You would get better around these all-star players, not push everyone out the door. So what is afoot? What is the game plan here? Are we rebuilding? Are we retooling? You hear like different verbs, adjectives, remaking. At the end of the day, the Mets aren't going to say rebuild. No way, no how. It's not going to happen. But do I believe they're going to be rebuild? I mean, right now, things are obvious. I mean, we're very diehard fans, and you see talented players, productive players. Who's going to replace Pete Alonso? I mean, you're going to have several players replace Pete Alonso. And even if we thread the needle right now, I mean, do I have confidence in Stearns? I mean, what I did today, and this is probably not productive, but this is what I did. I went through a list, and I know you can't really see it, but this is a list of Stearns' tenure. So this is a list of all the moves that Stearns has either botched or failed at, right? So am I confident that right now, when our team is essentially gutted, that Stearns is all of a sudden going to flip the switch and make every single positive, good move? I highly doubt it. I mean, if you go back to our 2024 season, and this is where I am right now, I'm at the point right now where Stearns is realizing that he made a ginormous mistake back in 2024. And this is a ginormous mistake in my opinion. I think in 2024, the hiring of Carlos Mendoza right now is coming back to bite David Stearns in such a big way. And that's when he basically let Buck Showalter walk. You hire Carlos Mendoza, a rookie manager. And I don't mind giving a rookie manager a chance, but you were supposed to be all in 2024, 2025, especially. You were supposed to be all in a $400 million payroll, and you essentially have Carlos Mendoza as your first move. Now you fast forward 3 years, and this is not a team that Carlos Mendoza can manage. It's not. And it's not to say that Pete Alonso's not a talented guy. Edwin Diaz is not a talented guy, but these are guys that it doesn't seem fit the manager. Usually you would find a manager that fits the team. And, when I hear Buck Showalter talk, and ironically, Buck Showalter is all over all the MLB shows, Foul Territory, Baltimore radio, and he is singing the praises of Pete Alonso, Edwin Diaz, rightfully so. But I love to hear how Buck Showalter had personal relationships with Brandon Nimmo, Edwin Diaz, Pete Alonso, and that's what you need to do. Now, when I hear Carlos Mendoza talk, do I see that personal relationship or do we hear about it? I don't really hear about it. It's not translating. So, in my estimation, one of the biggest mistakes, and maybe this is part of the course correction, is you had the wrong man at the helm since 2024. Since 2024. So, right now, okay, you reconstruct the core, right? Like that was the problem. I mean, like last year, the core was the problem. You had Juan Soto finished number 3 in MVP voting. Francisco Lindor, ever since he's been here, since his first, besides his first year, has been a top 10 MVP finalist. Last year, he finished in the, I believe, as the number 10 in the MVP race. Number 11 in the MVP race was Pete Alonso. So he finished number 11 in the MVP race. So gone. He is gone. He is out the door. But these are very, very talented players. But essentially, again, instead of building around these players, we are saying, all right, we're going to start fresh, start anew. And again, now you hear that potentially Francisco Lindor, if we're going to reset, which we are, which it's evident right now, I mean, that's got to be on the table, right? That's got to be on the table. I mean, we're going to comment on this as it goes along. But right now, I know everybody is feeling a certain way. I mean, I'm feeling a certain way, and it's not positive. Frustration, anger, sadness, heartbreak, fear about what's going to happen in the future. You might feel shocked, disappointed. Who are you going to blame? All these emotions. And then at the end of the day, everybody's going to justify it. The core wasn't working anyway. You had to break it up. This team won nothing. Well, again, if you break down exactly why this core wasn't working, there are so many other factors. But again, you blame the most productive players on the organization, on the team. So again, David Stearns right now has all the pressure on his shoulders. And honestly, he's doing himself no favors. Steve Cohen as well, doing himself no favors. He came in 6 years ago. We're going on the 6th season. And again, it was World Series within 5 years. Steve Cohen right now, and don't let the New York Mets do this to you. They're moving the goalpost in a big way. Raising ticket prices. Is that something that you want to see during a rebuilding or even a retooling phase? Hell no. It's crazily expensive to go to Citi Field. Honestly, it really bothers me when they raise prices when the product is inferior, especially when the Mets last year went out, personally asked by Steve Cohen, support the organization. Our product is good. And then the product went down in the toilet. So again, it's not a positive. It's not a good look, especially when you take the heart, the soul, the reason why the fans were coming out day in and day out. Pete Alonso, right here, I have behind me. I actually took the picture down, but I'm like, hey, you know what? It's not really Pete's fault. I'm still going to love Pete, and I don't have anything to replace it with. So I got Pete Alonso's picture back up. But it's not his fault. The Mets are actually, in my opinion, botched the negotiation big time. This year didn't communicate with them. And I know you hear the rhetoric that it's 5 years, too much money. Guy's going to be 35 years old at the end of the contract. Who wants a 35-year-old player in here? I mean, you signed Marcus Semien for 35, 36, 37. But yeah, Pete Alonso, who could have played DH, he's different. Pete Alonso, who's the best slugger in Mets history. No, we don't want him age 31, 32, 33, 34. No. Okay, well, the Mets were okay with 3 years, folks. So let's look at this right now. Mets were okay signing him for age 31, 32, 33. 3-year contract. That was okay. We want Pete for 31, 32, 33. He's okay. He would have been good. 5 years, no good. Well, I think, in my estimation, the Mets messed it up last year. Last year, the Mets played hardball. The market came back down to a very embarrassing level. If the Mets had a little foresight, they could have locked Pete up last year for 4 years. That would have covered the 1 year last year and the 3 years that they were darn comfortable with this year. If they had a little foresight, they would have been able to fit that contract in their little box, give Pete 4 years, $110 million, probably would have signed it because it was good money last year. It was good money. But again, no foresight, no logic. All right, screwed that one up. Another one they screwed up. And let's go into some of the many mistakes of the man right now who we have the confidence, or some people have confidence, that he's going to get everything right now. I mean, right now, last year, Montas and Manaea. Montas is already going down as one of the worst contracts in Mets history, right? That Montas Manaea money, that could have went to Pete. But you talk about allocating money correctly. That was allocating money incorrectly, no doubt about it. So that was a big botched move last year. 2 huge botch move. Then you bring in Nick Madrigal. Okay, that's a little move. All right, but that failed. Ryan Stanek, you brought him in last year. That failed. AJ Minter, I know he got hurt, but that failed thus far. Winker, you brought him back to be that DH option, possibly outfield first base. All right, he was hurt most of the year. That failed. At the deadline, you bring in Helsley. All right, I know he was decent. He was good. That turned out to be a failure. Gregory Soto, guy pitched to almost a 5 ERA, had his moments, but that essentially was a failure. Tyler Rogers, okay, that was probably his one good move in 2025, but you don't have a successful season if you have 1 or 2 good moves. What I'm saying is the majority of this man's moves have failed, and the negotiations have been botched. Another negotiation that was botched was going back last year. Another one. And if this one would have turned out right, we would have been in the playoffs. No doubt about it. And that is Garrett Crochet. We had a prime chance to trade away Jet Williams, Mark Vientos, package them, even a Sproat. I mean, you trade that package for a 26-year-old lefty, 100-mile-per-hour lefty guy who could be at the top end of your rotation for 6-7 years. Then to boot that, he gets a contract of $80 million? Ridiculous. Now the Mets have to trade the same exact package, get a guy who's older, get a guy with only 1 year left, and get a guy that you have to pay $400 million. So again, that was another botched move that Stearns couldn't get it to the finish line with. Could not get it to the finish line with. So again, I'm bringing all this up. And again, I don't want to put negativity on you. I'm just saying my confidence right now, to be honest, is very low in a man who has thus far in his tenure with the Mets, and we're on year 3. This is not year 1. This is not year 2. This is year 3. And what do you have to show for it? What do you have to show for it on the major league level, right? And then you hear, oh, David Stearns speaking about, well, we got Ryan Clifford, we got Carson Bench, we got Jet Williams. Oh, I mean, honestly, just come out and say it. We are literally rebuilding, because that's what you do in a rebuild. You got all of your high-paid players and you put the young kids on the field. So don't sell us that we are all in when the numero uno plan is to play the kids. And I don't mind playing the kids, because obviously you have to learn what you have. But what, 4 or 5 people are half the team's going to be kids? For the offensive side, I mean, honestly, that is not going to compete with teams like the Dodgers. I mean, teams who, they'll have 1 or 2 positions where they have a youth movement. But again, third or more than a third of the roster, that is not indicative of a team that is all in, and a team that, you're going to go there, pay an arm and a leg, and they're not all in winning. So again, that's my analysis of what I've seen from Stearns and why my confidence level is very, very low right now. All right. Hey, what's up, Will? Okay. And again, I want to hear everybody's comment, because I'm giving my opinion. I want to hear your opinion as well. Doesn't mean my opinion is right. I know right now a lot of us are, again, I read through the list of emotions. Yesterday I heard revenge things like, I'm not going to Citi Field. And, that's understandable, because it's an entertainment business. It is an entertainment business. And I would never advocate not going to see, your favorite team, especially since at the end of the day, it's a business. So if the revenue goes down, then obviously the team is less likely going to spend money. So I'm not going to say this, but it is an entertainment business. And if you take talented entertainment pieces off of the team, fans have said jerseys of Alonso, Diaz. You have the excitement of Diaz coming in the ninth inning, Timmy Trumpet, Narco playing in the background, a big hole, literally Pete Alonso just broke the record last year, all-time home run hitter. And again, he's got a family. He's got, children. He's got people he wants to support for generations. So it's a lot of money. I get it. And, apparently there was a huge gap between the Mets and the Orioles. So it's not like, oh, he's leaving the Mets for a little bit more money. It's not. No, he left the Mets for a lot more money elsewhere, 2 more years and a whole lot more money. So I definitely understand Pete's logic. And the Mets could have handled it differently if they certainly want to lock him up. Okay. All right. So the Mets, in my opinion, are certainly rebuilding. And again, the Lindor question is, I've heard that all day today. I've heard that. But my opinion is this. My opinion on the Lindor trade, and we're going to talk about a mock trade. In fact, Evan Roberts, he brought it up on WFAN today. I want to just bring it up to you, give you my opinion. But here's my opinion on trading Lindor. If they trade Lindor, there's no hiding the fact that they're rebuilding. There's no hiding. It's an obvious rebuild if they trade away Lindor. So you need something to build around, right? Obviously, you need something to build around. I believe they're going to build around Lindor and Soto. And I believe that they're going to propose this, or they're going to portray this whole offseason as if they're not rebuilding, right? So they're not going to trade Lindor, at least not right now. Not when you lost Pete. Not when you lost Diaz, not when you lost Nimmo, because they're going to try, in my opinion, and I don't want to use the word fool, but they're just going to try to make it look like, no, we're not rebuilding, we're just kind of retooling. But okay, so I don't believe they are going to trade a guy like Lindor, but Evan Roberts, who, I love the guy. I mean, I've been listening to him for 20 years now. He proposed a mock trade on WFAN to the Dodgers. To the Dodgers. So, like, of all teams, this is the mock trade you want to propose. So Lindor has about 6 years, $200 million left on the contract, and he proposed a trade for Freddie Freeman, right? Freddie Freeman, right? I honestly, right then and there, you're only trading Lindor because you're rebuilding and you're going to get a guy who's 35, 36 years old. Right then and there, it didn't make sense to me. So you're going to get Freddie Freeman. You're going to get Tyler Glass now. And then your young piece that you're going to get back is Andy Pages. He's a guy who kind of had a good offseason but struggled in the playoffs. And honestly, that's probably not going to work for the Dodgers because you're giving up 3 pieces of value. A starting pitcher, you're giving up a first baseman who fits well with the team, and you're giving up a young, talented piece, right? So it's probably not going to work for the Dodgers because it hurts them in multiple positions. Yes, they are getting a shortstop, but it just, I don't think they would do it. But would I do it? I wouldn't do it either. I really would not do it. Another reason they wouldn't do it is the chemistry issue. You bring Lindor into the equation. You take out a champion, a 3-time champion, Freddie Freeman. You take him out of the equation. And if we were literally right now had a full team that was built, bringing a guy like Freddie Freeman, yeah, that makes sense. But if we're gutting the team, bringing a guy like Freddie Freeman doesn't make sense. But here's the deal. That's why it's difficult to make a Lindor trade, because the only way that I would consider doing it is if I'm going to get a package where I'm significantly better now and in the future. Now and in the future, right? So that's the only way. But at the end of the day, I just wouldn't do it. I really wouldn't do it because you have a $300 million team, and I know if you trade Lindor, the payroll would go down. But right now, you're portraying yourself as an all-in team. No way, no how can Lindor be gone, because obviously it is a rebuild at that point. Okay. Okay, and Will, I've had your comment up here the whole time. Let me get to it. Gut the players that haven't won us crap. Okay. Again, there's a 26-man roster, right? And this is not basketball. This is not like you can have 3 or 4 good guys and you can win a championship. It's just not going to work that way. So Lindor, Soto, Alonso, Nimmo, Diaz. They were all-stars. They were your 5 best players out of a 26-man roster. How about getting the guys around your court better? Your pitching staff stunk. Your relievers were inconsistent. And besides Diaz, it just wasn't that great. That was my big thing. Improve around the core. And at the end of the day, I was a little kind of like suspect about um, Pete's defense, but the guy had such a great attitude about playing DH. I mean, you're in the National League now. The National League has the DH. Problem solved. He can be your DH for 3 or 4 years. And you can also bring up Clifford and he can play first base, or Mark Vientos. I mean, some of the suggestions right now, replacements are a bit, like, I'm just like, beside myself. I'm just beside myself. Jeff McNeil. I'm hearing Jeff McNeil splitting time with Mark Vientos. And me, I'm a big Mark Vientos proponent. I certainly am, but I'm more of a proponent of, at this point right now, Mark Vientos playing, fill-in third base here and there, DH most of the time. He's defensively limited, but full-time first baseman. I need an upgrade. I need somebody who can put up numbers and somebody that I can rely on, because you got to remember, we're replacing Pete Alonso. And let's think back to this. Pete Alonso actually saved this organization. Really did. Because if you think back, Pete Alonso came onto the scene in 2019. That's when he hit the 53 homers. He had a magical season, and everybody fell in love with the polar bear, right? We're going to have a masher for 6 years and hopefully a lifetime Met. That was a time where we came to the realization that our starting staff, our 5 pitchers, Wheeler, Harvey, DeGrom, we would have a killer rotation. By 2019, we came to the realization that we wouldn't be having that. Wheeler, we wouldn't be resigning. Harvey was, out the door. Syndergaard was going out the door. But Alonso brought life, energy into this fan base and really propelled us into the 2020s. Really did. Really carried this team, this fan base, and really took the attention off of the failure of the pitching staff. And also, when DeGrom left, we had Pete Alonso here. And, again, I can't really say anything bad about Pete. I really can't. Baltimore's going to get such a great guy, and this guy wants to play every day. And I love players, regardless of their, liabilities. Every player is not perfect. Yeah, he doesn't have the best glove. But again, willing to go to DH, wants to play every single day, doesn't ever complain about injuries, loves the game. If you're worried about giving any 4 or 5 year contract to anybody, Pete Alonso shouldn't be your guy, shouldn't be your guy. But all right, we're past that. We certainly are. All right, let me get to some questions while we get to the next topic. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. A lot of stuff. But again, we wanted to start it off with the spin. Right now, again, the Mets right now, they are not going to utter the words rebuild. No how, no way. They're going to portray it like we are all in. But again, don't let them move the bar. And when I talk about moving the bar, we're going to go to Steve Cohen's comment, his reaction to the signings or the not signings of Pete Alonso and Diaz. So let me get his comments that he actually texted John Heyman. It would have been nice if maybe he made, some type of commentary on camera or something. Look Mets fans in the eye. One of the toughest times in recent Mets history. You failed a couple months ago. You failed big time. You failed. You've been failing a lot. So let's just say you've been failing a lot. Look Mets fans in the eye and actually have a short conversation with us. But again, so he texted John Heyman. Okay, I'm sorry. This is coming up a little slow. Okay. So Mets owner Steve Cohen, what he did do is he apologized to his fan base at the end of September after the New York Mets failed to make the postseason. And he acknowledged concerns yesterday. Now, this is his text to John Heyman. And when I say moving the bar, this I feel is a perfect example of it. So his exact text said this: I totally understand the fans' reaction. There is lots of offseason left to put a playoff team on the field. So it's very short too. I totally understand the fans' reaction. There is lots of offseason left to put a playoff team on the field. Now, when I talk about moving the bar, there's no bigger example of this. What the hell happened to freaking World Series? It was never about just building a playoff team. It was never about that. Obviously, you got to make the playoffs to get to the World Series, but that was the goal. Now, don't worry, guys. We're going to put a team together to make the playoffs. 6 teams make the playoffs in each league. That's 12 teams out of 30. Almost half of the league makes the playoffs. That shouldn't be the goal. This should be championship, championship, championship. And this is what I'm talking about right now. The goal seems to be shifted in a big way. And Steve Cohen's an intelligent, smart guy. He knows right now there's much heavy lifting to do. And again, talking about a championship, and you compare yourself to the Dodgers, your main opponent, your main competition, you're going to look silly, but still, that should be the goal. And I can't help it. You can't help it that over the last almost 3 years of David Stearns being the president of this organization has solidified no positions on this major league roster. Or maybe no. Let's scratch that. Nolan McLean, okay, he's solidified as a starter. Juan Soto, okay, that's a Steve Cohen move, and Francisco Lindor. Besides those 3 players, who are 100% solidified, bona fide starters? And I know Brett Beatty's probably another one that you're thinking, and but still, he's a guy that was with those 2-3 months going to be the real Brett Beatty, or does he sink back to what he was? Other than that, there's really no solidified players that I'm confident in, even in the bullpen. Yes, there's guys coming up from the minor leagues, and I guess a lot of people may say, well, that's why this year we have to bring up the young kids. Well, in my opinion, we should have learned a lot more in the last 2 years about what we had or acquired legit major league talent. The first move of the offseason, I was so excited because I was trying to see what would be the signal, what would be the direction, right? What would be the direction? Because I want a championship team. And that first move was going to signal what we were going to do and how committed we were going to be. Okay, so our first move, we trade away Nimmo. Okay, I understood it because we're breaking up the core. We want to get a little better defensively. I love Brandon Nimmo, good hitter, but sometimes it's better to make a move a little too early than a little too late. So I get it. All right. You got a gold glove second baseman. You pair him up with a gold glove shortstop. We're going to be good up the middle. All right. Okay. Good start. Shows me also you took on $6 million more in salary this on that trade. So that tells me that money's not an option. All right, let's go forward. Then the second move, or second major move, apparently we offer 3 years, $66 million to Diaz. And then 3 years, $69 million, he goes to the Dodgers. And then you hear all the miscommunication. You hear that Diaz was never properly told about his role when Devin Williams was acquired. Well, then, in my opinion, if you never communicated properly with Edwin Diaz, the best closer in baseball, a huge asset, then you never really prioritized him. You never did. You want to know what team chose to prioritize him? We don't know. The Dodgers. That organization outclassed us again. And that organization has been outclassing everybody. So not just the Mets, but the Mets, that's what they aspire to be. They aspire to be the LA Dodgers of the East Coast. But again, 6 years into the tenure of Steve Cohen, how far are we from the LA Dodgers? How far? And even from when David Stearns took over this team from 2024, when we were 2 games short of the World Series, how far have we fallen in just 2 years? And I know sometimes you got to break things down to build them back up. I'm all for that. I'm all for that. But I don't like the way we're going about it. I just don't. I'm hoping in 6 months, or 12 months, next October, we could all look at these reactions, kind of laugh and enjoy the playoff run, enjoy the good product. I hope that's the case. I want the New York Mets to succeed more than anything. I really do. This, again, I've been in a bad mood. It just, been ruining my life the last couple of days. Thank God I've been off. Because if I was at work, it just would even be worse. So, but at the end of the day, confidence going forward is at an all-time low. JMS, I know this is probably common from a long time ago, but AJ Ewing, this is, part of the thing. The farm system is good. The prospects are good down below. Carson Bench, he's a prospect right now that, a lot of organizations are so upset, kicking themselves in the behind that they did not draft Carson Bench. So that's not, part of the problem. Like, I would love to build around Diaz, build around Alonso, and you could still put a Carson Bench in left or center or wherever you choose to play him, but still have a strong, very strong core. Like, it just almost seems like we're relying on Carson Bench to be an all-star in year one. Jet Williams, an all-star in year one. We're relying on a 22-year-old Ryan Clifford to be, a lot better in such a short time. Even Nolan McLean, as of right now, Nolan McLean is our ace. Like, we're relying so heavily in these young kids. Honestly, hats off to them if they can come out and produce like McLean did last year, but it's not really fair to rely on these young kids right away. You want to give them some support, and at the end of the day, the manager's still, in my opinion, of rookie level, so it's not like they have a guy like Buck Showalter in the dugout. So it doesn't feel good. And another thing, Diaz complained, and he was very upset about the firing of Jeremy Hefner. And a lot of the guys who leave the New York Mets organization aren't saying good things about us, really not. And I don't remember a time when you had so many disgruntled employees and so many players who are just leaving on a bad note. I don't remember this. And I know the Wilpons, yeah, they were tight on money, and yeah, they did things a little differently. But I always remember when people departed, they always said things positively. And even if you did have a bad time in an organization, it's always best to be professional. You're always on the lookout for another job. So that's always good. But right now, people like Ottavino, Eric Chavez, Edwin Diaz, they're not afraid to tell everybody, the world, about how they were mistreated by the New York Mets or disrespected by the New York Mets. Again, it doesn't say good things about the New York Mets. And when I bring that up, people talk, other players see how players are treated, and that doesn't bode well for new players coming in or players deciding to pick the Mets over another organization. It's no wonder why Edwin Diaz bolted across the country. What's up, Music Man? And I think you are echoing the sentiment of a lot of Mets fans. I was excited. You were excited to get to this off. I was so super excited. I just felt like after the huge failure that, we would come out so aggressive. And that's why I was excited about the Nimmo trade. I'm like, okay, it's a very aggressive trade. It's a very aggressive trade. And now the excitement is 100% out the door. And, again, we got to see what the next moves are, right? Are they going to bring in like everybody's saying, well, if they're bringing Bellinger, if they bring in Tucker, if they bring in Scoobo, if they bring in all those names, then they're going to have a good season. Then you have nothing to complain about. I'm like, yeah, I guess if they bring in all those guys, those top guys, but what is the likelihood that they're going to thread the needle? What is the likelihood that they're going to acquire all those players? I mean, right now, if they acquire one of those guys, I'd be like, okay, it almost seems like a miracle. I mean, my confidence level is so low in David Stearns. And then when I see him communicate with people, it's just not very good. Not very good. I mean, like, it just almost feels like Steve Cohen has to step in. And also too, like, things that would have impressed me were looking for young arms, right? And I know a lot of people at the time didn't really I think this went under the radar, but this is a little subtle move, right? And I believe I'm 100% sure it happened in December of 2024. This was the first off season of David Stearns. If I got the timing wrong, I apologize. But when an example like this, we didn't protect Mike Vassell for the Rule 5 draft. Mike Vassell, he was drafted with the Mets in 2021, 2022, had some success in the minors, but we left him exposed. He was picked up and ultimately landed with the Chicago White Sox. And I mean, as a 25-year-old last year, he had a great season, a 3.0 WAR, 47 games pitched, 2.5 ERA. I mean, the guy really had a very, very good year. Pitched 100 innings, came out of the pen. I mean, that would have been a very nice piece in terms of building pieces throughout the years. That would have been at least another decent piece. So it's stuff like that, even tiny, tiny moves like that. What's up, Eric? And again, I want all the sides, and you don't got to agree with me. So I love the opposing view. Stop blaming Stearns. He's following his orders. Cohen is never not gonna get involved. I just this offseason, last offseason, and especially the first offseason of David Stern's tenure, I would say, that I'm sorry. I would say that maybe possibly it was obvious in Yamamoto's case. It was obvious in the negotiations for Soto that Steve Cohen was involved. He was certainly involved. This offseason, I don't think at all. I don't think at all Steve Cohen's saying behind closed doors, oh, this is what you got to do. This is what you got to do. He may be saying this. He may be saying this. Hey, David Stearns, we're in year 3. Failure year 1, or not failure, but I got my opinions about year 1. I kind of think that even David Stearns felt that luck was involved in year 1. Obviously, you have that lucky home run by Lindor to make the playoffs. Pete Alonso hit that great home run to advance in the wild card series. So I think there was a lot of luck. Yes, we had momentum, but in year 2, we failed tremendously. So yeah, I think there's more of a budget this year. I think in year 3, seeing failure after failure after failure, that Steve Cohen's not telling him who to get, but he is certainly saying that, hey, I'm not going to pay hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes to lose and lose and lose. I'm not doing it. So, if that's pulling the strings, that's what owners do. I mean, David Stearns ultimately has the call on every single player. And if he needs help, like he did in the Soto negotiations, he can use a resource in the owner. That's a resource. But I don't think he's pulling the strings in terms of player that we're choosing. I don't think that at all. What's up, Vinny? I think Stearns would love Soto to demand a trade. That would be very interesting. I actually have that on my one of my questions on my sheet here. Like, how does Soto feel right now? How does Soto feel a year after signing almost an $800 million contract and committing himself at least to the next 5 years to the New York Mets, 4 years now, 15-year total contract. So a large part of his life to one organization, because this organization represented themselves like they're all in and they're going to move heaven and earth to be a championship team. Just a year after that, does that ring true if you're Juan Soto? I mean, if you're Juan Soto, and this may be being a little extreme, maybe it's talking a little bit out of emotion, but if you're Juan Soto, I mean, you might be feeling a bit duped, a bit tricked. I thought we were all in. I thought we're going to build, we're going to have some veterans, some young kids. That's usually what a good mix of, that's usually a good mix. Good teams have that, a good mix of young talent and veterans. But, the talented veterans that we have, we're letting go. We are not stepping up to the table. So, I mean, Juan Soto right now, I mean, yeah, I mean, I would be questioning what I did signing on the dotted line because the promises that were promised to me don't seem to be honored. Now, again, there's a lot of offseason left, as Steve Cohen alluded to, as David Stearns alluded to. But again, we just need so much now. First baseman, closer, couple guys out of the bullpen, 3 guys in the starting rotation, a left fielder, a center fielder, a DH, probably a couple utility guys, second baseman, catcher. I mean, it's just a lot of stuff, folks. It is a lot of stuff. The Lindor trade is BS started by SD But here's the thing, like, fans right now are smart, are intelligent, right? And you can put dots together. If you see the Mets not going after or not trying to retain their talented veterans, and like literally, we just have Soto and we just have Lindor in terms of like high level talent. I mean, and Lindor too is 32 years old. Like, let's not forget that the biggest connecting of the dots is Lindor's age. If Lindor was of Soto's age, I would be like, okay, we have 5-6 years to kind of rebuild. He's still in his prime. But Lindor right now, don't forget, is leaving his prime. He's leaving his prime. So, if connected with everything, connected to how far the Mets are from being a championship team, that's where these trade talks emerge from. And then you see how the Mets are acting, how Steve Cohen's acting. That's where that comes from. I don't think it was, one, San Diego troll. And the moment, when you kind of hear the chatter, the trade chatter with Lindor, another thing kind of came to my mind. We heard the kind of the bickering with Soto not really being a big fan of Lindor, them just having 2 personalities, Lindor liking the fashion, Soto just kind of being more like a guy who just wants to come to work, put his head down and be productive. Like, they didn't click. And then there was a thing about Soto thinking Marte's more of a captain, Lindor wants to be the captain, and then Nimmo, he wanted to be the captain. I mean, there was something there. I mean, there certainly was something there. And then right now, Nimmo, he's not on the team, so nobody's got to worry about him vying for the captain. But still, you got Soto, you have Lindor there. Now, since those 2 are essentially the last 2 men left, are they going to gravitate and gel with one another, or are they going to still remain on icy terms? Now, I think right now, a Lindor trade is not in the works because I think the look right now would be horrific. I think in terms of us being in entertainment, we're in the entertainment industry. Yes, we got to win games. It's baseball, but losing Lindor at this point would just be, way too much. Way too much. Do I see it maybe in the next year if the Mets continue to go south? Yeah, I would foresee it in the near future, but certainly not in this offseason. Really, certainly not in this offseason. Again, like you just shoot yourself in the foot for 2026 and 2027 if Lindor is not on your team. Lindor is going to be a future Hall of Famer. He's one of the better 2-way players in the game. I mean, he's a guaranteed 5 to 6 WAR player. That's a guy you want on your team. Not to mention he plays one of the prime positions in baseball, and one of the focuses this offseason is improving the defense and having a shortstop second base combo of Simeon and Lindor, that's pretty strong up the middle. Okay. All right. See, I'm just trying to make sure I got everything I'm covering. I got a whole list of topics today. One of the other topics that we saw right now is, obviously you got other teams in Major League Baseball, doing their own thing, trying to get better. One of the big targets for supposed targets for the New York Mets, you have Suarez, who is a stud. He's a really good closer. He signs a 3-year deal, and it looks like he's going to become the Braves setup man. But he's was a 34-year-old right-hander, still is a 34-year-old right-hander. He signed a 3-year deal, 45 million. So it's about 16 million dollars a year. And they pair him up with Raisel Iglesias. So they have a pretty good setup man, a pretty good closer. I mean, a lot of Mets fans, including myself, are hoping to get another big bullpen piece. Suarez, a guy, very solid, throws 100 miles per hour, has had a very solid career with the Padres. That would have been a good piece. Certainly would have been a good piece. Not the direction that the Mets went in, and the Braves made a couple moves today. They actually got Yastrzemski as well. You see the Phillies signing back Schwarber, so they are starting to take care of business. And the Phillies, teams like the Phillies and the Braves, they don't have to do as much. They really don't. The Mets just have so much to do, which gets me a bit nervous because as time ticks, options come off the board. And another thing that comes into the equation is a word called leverage. A word called leverage. As time goes on and options, the supply of talent goes off the board, the price goes up. That goes up in the trade market. That goes up, probably free agents. I'm not really sure how much we're going to pay for a high-level player. But, certainly in the trade market, when you see a desperate team come to you like the New York Mets, the trade price is going to go up. The trade price is going to go up. So that's a bit scary. And that all has to do with leverage. Right now, we are in a very kind of desperate situation, and our leverage is low. So that's why I'm scared about the trade market. I always thought if the Mets can get a couple good free agent signings, it would help them all over the place. It would give them leverage in the trade market. It would display that they are not a desperate organization. But it's not going to be easy. It's certainly not going to be easy right now. Okay, I just saw. I can see Alvarez being traded. Honestly, right now, everybody's on the board. Like everybody's on the board. They are talking about like one of the targets. So let's just get to the targets right now. So one of the big targets that the New York Mets are supposedly looking into is Wilson Contreras. He's a pretty interesting option. Wilson played a large part of his career with the Chicago Cubs. Right now, he's currently on the St. Louis Cardinals. Pretty good offensive player, 20 home runs, 80 RBIs, 257 batting average, 344 on base, OPS of about 800. He is a guy who played catcher a lot, but now kind of transitioning to first base. So, if you swing some type of deal for him, he could certainly fill in at first base. The contract situation for him is he's not making a whole hell of a lot of money. So that may stick out. That may be one of those value guys. In 2026, he's going to be making 18 million, 2027, 18.5. And then the team has an option for the third year for 17.5. But, the thing about this is you didn't want to get Pete because he's an aging player. So, and this is what kind of confuses and confounds me. But now one of your bigger targets supposedly is going to be for a 35-year-old or a 34-year-old, to be fair. 34-year-old. I mean, you already got a 35-year-old in Simeon, but it's just very, very mixed messages. Very solid player, not a run producer like Pete Alonso. Certainly a downgrade, in my opinion. So, if you got him as part of your plan to replace Pete, you would have to keep going. And then since he's locked up, I mean, you got to trade assets now. Instead of re-signing Pete, now you have to give up prospects. Instead of saving those prospects for pitching, now you got to use those prospects to replace Pete. And then, folks, if you can get if you have a second, if you can hit the like button, I appreciate everyone in the room. It really does help out. I'm trying to get to some of the comments right now. I see a lot of good commentary going on. Let me get to some of the comments. But again, just before that, Wilson Contreras, if we made a trade for him right now, it would, I'll tell you this, it would just kind of further confuse me. You could sell me, hey, we want to get younger, faster. You're going to get a guy who was mostly a catcher his whole career. Now you're going to have him play some first base. So, I mean, defensively, he's okay. But again, not a great defensive gem at first base, a guy who's older, a guy who's not a good, not necessarily bad, but not as good as Pete offensively. So it's just a big question mark. It's just really a big question mark. This move just kind of screams like, he might be a player that fits better in the clubhouse. I mean, that's what it kind of just screams like. He's a better clubhouse fit. Which at the end of the day, when we talk about the clubhouse, in the back of my head, it always reflects on Mendoza. And that's just me. When there's so many players that are clubhouse issues, and this happened with great teams. Joe Torre, manager of the Yankees decades ago, like he had to deal with personality after personality after personality after personality. Like the goal wasn't to separate everyone. The goal was to make everybody or have everybody get along as good as possible because you have strong leadership. So this is telling me this right now. Lindor's not a strong leader. He's not. Like, I mean, leadership is such a huge issue. And that's essentially why, I thought that he could have been the captain a few years back. It doesn't seem like he has those type of skills, unfortunately. He doesn't. I mean, everything that we're seeing that has transpired, even like the little kind of like spats back and forth between McNeil, and then also, the article that came out a couple of weeks ago about the McNeil Lindor thing on June 20th. I'm not sure if that was all true, but it was in the paper. But, these little things don't kind of scream leadership. Leaders usually bring people together. Despite differences, you want everybody to be on the same page. The New York Mets clubhouse after June were not on the same page. So, yes, I guess we are revamping that entire clubhouse. And again, to me, like this is all really kind of reflective on Mendoza's leadership skills. But I guess we got to just evaluate how Mendoza takes this team into 2026. There's certainly going to be no excuses. No excuses. I mean, Stearns is eradicating any problems. The one thing that I got to give to Stearns, and I've been 99.9% negative towards Stearns. But the one thing that I will give Stearns, I will give him one thing, not giving him a lot, but I will give him one thing. Stearns is responsible for this team, this organization, the direction that we go in. Stearns is responsible. So him doing it his way, even though we all may disagree with it, or maybe some people like it. I know I disagree with it. So let's just say 70 disagree, 30% agree, or even if it's 50-50, him doing it his way, there's nothing that he could say at the end of the day, even if it fails, he did it his way. That just is what it is. I mean, Nimmo, Pete Alonso, they were defensive liabilities, and you brought in Soto last year. So, technically, if you have those three guys on your roster. I mean, those are three guys, a third of your team on the field. That's a defensive liability. Now, if Soto, that is the remaining guy who isn't the best at defense, at least you have the option to put him in the DH spot in big situations. So, that is what to be fair, at least if he fails doing it his way. With fans like you people, why would players want to come here? That's funny. I gotta say, I'm not sure if you're a New York fan, probably not, but New York fans, I would say, are unlike fans from other places. I've been like stadiums and I've been like in stadiums in different parts of the country, or at least heard from different parts of the country. New York fans eat, sleep, care about their players, their team 24/7. Sometimes it's fanatical. That's what fans do. Sometimes the emotions get out of whack. But I'll tell you, when things go right, there is no better place to be than in New York. Because if you are a player and you are playing at a high level and you are giving it your all, if you're giving it that max effort, you're going to get rewarded in a big way in New York. And there's no doubt about that. And I agree. It's hard sometimes because when things don't go well, you're not going to get a pat on the back. You're going to get that motivation, like things got to get better and they got to get better quickly. This is fair. I mean, this is kind of fair. Give it until opening day, then you can cry. I mean, I think that's a fair assessment. Right now we're looking at 2 days in the beginning of October. We're not even in the midpoint, not October, in December. So we're looking at 2 days, not even the middle part of December yet. We got a lot of time left. December, January, February. We got some prime time left to improve our team. By opening day, we'll see what the team looks like. And even I say on opening day, a guy like David Stern will not have a finished product by opening day. He doesn't work like that. Brian Cashman is completely different. Brian Cashman likes to have everything complete. He likes to do things early. This year doesn't seem like the Yankees are too busy, but David Stearns is the opposite. He will literally milk everything to the last minute. If the team is not completely done by April 1st, it's not completely done. He will continue to add pieces and tweak the team. But a large part of the team should be complete by that time. So at least we will have a better picture of what this team will look like. So I guess for people who will want to get upset, this and that, including myself, I get upset all the time. At least we have some time for things to get better. Okay, so all right, so we went over a lot so far. So my next question is, and this is it's a loaded question because the Mets have certainly so much to do. But if in your next move for the New York Mets, who's your number one target? So the next move right now, if you could pick any player out there, who is the target right now? Who is the target? Are we going to go after pitching? Are we going to go after offense? Are we going to go after somebody in the bullpen left? What are we going to pursue? And there's one guy who I think has a very high ceiling, who is still in his prime, has a lot of prime left. He's a bit of an unknown, and he's going to cost a lot of money, but I think he has the potential to fill a need in a big way. And so I'm just giving you some time to think of your guy. But my guy is going to be Tatsuya Imai. That would be my guy. If I had to pick, One guy, I would definitely go after pitching. We need pitching, 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 and more pitching. Fortunately, we have some young and up and coming kids in the minors. So obviously Carson Bench, Jet Williams, Ryan Clifford. So we could supplement those guys, and then we can also acquire offense. I feel it's easier to acquire offense. It's a lot tougher to acquire top end pitching. Not many top end pitching, not many aces in the MLB, Major League Baseball. And if you have a guy who is 28 years old, he's actually still 27, and you have a guy who has the potential ability to be an ace or a number two, some people have him as an ace. That is who you have to target, not a guy in his 30s. This is a guy who's 28 years old. He has 1, 2, 3. He's got 6 pitches. He's got a 6-pitch arsenal. And some people who are unfamiliar with him, he throws kind of 3/4 sidearm. So if you remember Max Scherzer, he throws very similar arm angles. Another guy that he supposedly profiles like is Luis Castillo. That's another guy. And again, the pitches that he uses predominantly are the 4-seam fastball, the slider, the changeup. He also utilizes other pitchers in certain situations. He has a splitter, he has a Vulcan change, and he has a curveball. But the 3 pitchers that you have to know are 4-seamer, slider, and changeup. Very, very important. He throws those pitches from a low sidearm release point. And what it does is it gives his fastball and changeup a lot of horizontal movement. And it averages about 15 inches of run. So, that's very important. A lot of times you want to evaluate the type of pitches, the quality of pitches. The quality of his pitches are very, very nasty. He's got tight vertical break on his slider, which is, very tough on lefties and righties for that matter. But again, the pitcher that he profiles most similarly to is Luis Castillo. Luis Castillo, a younger Luis Castillo, is a very nice pitcher to have. And they also say his style is like Max Scherzer when it comes to how Emoy applies his pitches. And I apologize for mispronouncing his name. On top of just what his stuff looks like, there are some interesting MLB pitchers who take a similar approach. Similarly, he profiles very close to Scherzer. Imai is a fastball slider dominant pitcher, especially against right-handers. Over 90% of his pitches versus righties last season were 4-seamers and sliders. Then he adds off-speed pitches to lefties. So he's very good with changing his repertoire to lefties and righties. So that's good. Last year, he pitched 163 innings, 1.92 ERA, and 178 strikeouts. So he is very dominant in the strikeout category as well. Another guy that he's pitches, or actually not pitches similar to, but he's got a very similar fastball to Joe Ryan. So like Ryan, Imai throws his fastball from a low slot, about 26-degree arm angle, a very similar induced rise, 14 inches, like Joe Ryan, and he has run 13 inches. So, I mean, that is very important. Two of the things that you always hear very important of pitchers are location and movement. Location and movement. Now, Imai is a guy who really averages between 93 and 96 miles per hour. That's where he threw the bulk of his fastball pitches. And he averages his fastball close to 95 miles per hour. But in situations, he can get it up to 100 miles per hour. Not much, but 98, 99 in bear down situation, he has that ability. So that would be my one guy. Oh man, game. That's a little bleak. Not even Jesus Christ could save this team. Yeah, I honestly I don't really blame everybody for being a little negative. I mean, I told you why I felt a certain way. Michael King, that's another one. So my top 2 pitchers were Tatsuya Amai, and Michael King was my number 2 guy. Michael King is a guy I still think that we can get I'm thinking we can get him at a decent price. Although I'm not really hearing too much about the market on him yet. But Michael King was injured last year. So I'm thinking, he's not going to get that crazy long-term contract. So if he's a guy that's interested in the Stearns special, meaning you have 1 year to prove yourself and then an option for the second, or a 2-year contract option for the third, making $25 million a year. Maybe that's a contract that he'd be interested in doing so that he can get a larger long-term contract next year. But I would certainly be interested in a Michael King, very talented guy. Last year only pitched 15 games, still at a 3.44 ERA. But Michael King is a guy. I've actually wanted him last year. And if you look at the advanced metrics on Michael King, they really don't blow you away. Not in 2025. They don't. In 2024, much better. So, he is a guy that I think teams may want him to prove himself. So, based on that, based on what the market may or may not look like, maybe he's a guy that Stearns could take advantage of a down market. Although at the end of the day, starting pitching is always a pretty decent market, at least this year. But we will see. That's another name I do like. Oh, that's I don't know. Montas, King not worth it. Frankie Montas all over again. If you think he's going to be injured like Montas, I could see that possibly happening, but he's definitely more talented than a Frankie Montas. But again, if you're referring to the injury concerns, then yeah, that's something that maybe would give you that option to have a lower valued contract. But again, I'm only speaking about a 1 year deal with possibility for a second year. So I'm not talking about anything long term. So the risk is not there. The risk is not there. So even if you're concerned about injuries, the structure that I'm thinking about, which Stearns only thinks about, is a very low risk contract. King has way better stuff. Yeah, I agree. King does have way better stuff, but Montas had his moments. Not very many. What's up, Sharon? Stearns is still working for the Brewers, and Cohen doesn't even like baseball. Ugh. You know, and I'm not sure really how I feel about this, but I know there's a lot of chatter in the last probably week, last couple of days. Since not Stearns, since Cohen got his casino license, that got approved. Now, obviously, they can build the casino. Cohen had to invest $500 million to get that license. That's a lot. That's a huge chunk of change. So, I mean, there is speculation out there that is that kind of hampering or prohibiting him from spending an exorbitant amount on the Mets this offseason? Because let's make no mistake here right now. I mean, we know that Stearns is making business decisions. I'm not liking the business decisions. You may not be liking it, but he is making business decisions, meaning that he has a budget. What is the budget? Not sure, but it seems like there has to be a budget. I'm assuming it's similar to what the budget was last year. So that would be somewhere probably around the $350 million range. So if you're at 280 right now and you added Alonso for 30, you're at 310, and now you add Diaz for 20, 310 plus 20 or 25. Now you're at almost 335. So there is a budget, and that's why we're making decisions. Not that they're the right decisions. I mean, I'm angry that we're actually at 300 million or close to 300 million right now, and the team has so many damn holes. And it's not like Stearns is in his first year. He's been here for quite a few years. Now, as far as Cohen doesn't like baseball, like the rumor that I see a lot, everybody's saying all over, is that Cohen was really kind of playing the long game when he bought the Mets, how he really valued the area around the Mets, and that was his big play. That was his big play, to develop the area around the Mets, and the Mets, that was like more or less a side thing. I mean, I don't really necessarily agree with that. I mean, but if that was the case, I mean, at least, I would give the guy a little credit for having some foresight, something that I think David Stearns lacks. He doesn't have that foresight. But yeah, I don't know. I got to see how this offseason ends before making any definitive claims that, Steve Cohen doesn't even like baseball. I mean, actually, it's even silly to say that. I mean, I believe he does like baseball. He's been very involved in the game in the last 6 years. But in terms of his prioritizing, that's what I mean. All right, folks. So I'm gonna go eat some food right now. But if anything happens, I'm gonna jump right on. In fact, we might do, usually sometime, not usually, sometimes we do our 3 a.m. Not at 3 a.m., but we'll live stream from 12 to 3, 1 to 3. So if you're up later, stick around. If you're brand new, subscribe, turn on your notifications, and then hang out with us later. I want to thank everybody. Great comments as always. Great feedback, great stuff. You made the show fun. You made it interesting. So again, thank you, everybody. If you could like on the way out, again, I thank you in advance. And again, I will speak to everybody very, very soon. And at the end of the day, it seems like things can only go up from here. Really, barring a ridiculous Lindor trade. I mean, I don't even want to say it. I don't think it's going to happen. But barring that, it's got to go up from here. It's got to go up. And anything that happens, we will really analyze. We're going to be honest. We're going to try to be is matter of fact as possible. No sugarcoating anything, because right now we're not in a very pleasant position. I'll say that. But have a great night, folks. Again, thank you, thank you, thank you.